Morning everybody, and as with my colleagues, I'm delighted to be here as well on this important day. I'm going to say a few things more widely around the County Council, not just about health and care. I'll talk a little bit about our partnership approach. So Neil's already referenced the Cumbria deal, and I'll just touch on that. But I have been asked also to help you get a little bit of an understanding of the financial context that the Council's operating in, and certainly Sir Neil alluded to that the NHS isn't alone in facing huge challenges there. And then I'll move on and say some more specific things about both social care, but also about public health and its importance in underpinning the regime now. Okay, great. So just to take you on to have a brief overview of the financial context of the County Council. Some of this data is sadly very, very familiar to us all, and I'm not going to go through the whole set of data that some of you will be familiar with, and don't really worry too much about the figures, but just look at the way that graph goes down to just give you a bit of a sense of the expectations that the Council has around the extent to which its external grant directly from government will be reducing until we get through to the end of this decade, with a real chance that will be down to nil. So our income will be dependent on those resources that can be generated locally through taxation and so on. And then this graph again gives you an indication of the scale of what we've already delivered and what's got to come, and how hard that is going to be and has been. So you'll see maybe that up until the end of this financial year, or at the end of the last financial year, 113 million already delivered. And I think many people to be grateful for the fact that in many cases that's been delivered without a massive impact on the front line, but that's going to be a bit harder and harder going forward. 40 million additional to be delivered during this financial year, and then you can see the gap as we go forward. And that's hard. Decisions are being made almost as we speak, will be made by the County Council in the coming months about how best to deliver the kinds of savings required to close that gap. And of course it is savings that have to be delivered. There's no legal capacity for overspending or setting an unbalanced budget. And while there have been no firm decisions around what proportion of that budget gets specifically, or those savings get specifically targeted at health and care services, you don't have to be a genius to realise that when we've got around a third of the Council's budget, there will be significant impacts, regardless of how hard we all work to try and protect the front line and protect the most vulnerable people. So, we talked a little bit earlier about the Cumbria deal, but I just wanted, in terms of context, to reference the deal, not only for its health issues actually, but for some of the wider issues in the context we're working within. So we're working in a two-tier political system, and the Cumbria deal has been signed off by the district councils, by the blue light services, and by all the health bodies in the county. And in terms of health, we need to recognise that we work as a county council, with a democratic mandate across the whole of the county. And so in the Cumbria deal, the success regime is really important, and again, a number of flexibilities have been identified that we'd all be looking for. But we need to recognise as well that the county council, and certainly my teams, will be working equally hard across the south of the county with colleagues in the vanguard. And again, I think I'd like to echo Sir Neil's thoughts that in a way we need to see the two things as a mirror image and be asking for some of the same flexibilities and be aiming for some of the same outcomes for our communities. Just to move on then to talk about some more specific priorities for social care and public health, because just as all of you here, predominantly from the health service, are working to deliver significant transformation and significant change, we're working both internally and externally with yourselves and with others to try and transform the ways in which we deliver social care across our communities. So just to give you a bit of a headline about perhaps the challenges and the priorities, and actually the challenges are very, very similar. So we know we've got some very significant demographic challenges and what we often describe as a super ageing population. One of my biggest concerns, and actually one of the biggest pressures on my services, is not just the numbers of over 85s, but the growing numbers of younger people with complex needs. And very often those people are living longer and longer and fully engaged lives in their communities, which is great, but there are some significant pressures associated with that. And we need to make sure that in any future work we do, we don't just focus on those people who perhaps revolve through the acute system more usually. We face very similar challenges around an ageing workforce, and we also face workforce challenges. And critically, we collectively face some high levels of fragility, not just in the NHS workforce, but in the independent sector workforce. And we know we've got to address those issues if we're going to deliver what we need to address. And one of the most significant challenges I think we also face, which impacts all of us, and was highlighted for me very strongly in this year's annual public health report, one of the shifts we're seeing in the community is a significant rise in the number of people living on an income of less than £10,000 a year. That's really quite a shocking set of figures. And when we start to think about how equipped those people will be in the future to support themselves, to support paying for some of their own care and all of those things, we have to really think very hard. It's not just ageing, there are some significant issues around income and poverty that we're dealing with. So, to be a little bit more positive, what are we doing then to try and manage that gap and close that gap? Well, our transformation programme in social care is probably not much different to what many people are doing nationally, but it's overlaid with some of the challenges we've discussed to do with demography, geography, remoteness and so on. But we're putting significant effort and resources, despite these times of austerity, into really trying to drive at prevention, trying to support people, individuals, families and communities to stay away from services for longer, to be more self-sufficient, and when they do come into services, to come in more resilient, more able to manage and cope. So we're trying to help some people divert right away. We're trying to help some people come to us later on in their pathway, and we're also trying to help some people come to us much more self-sufficient to be able to cope. For those people who do come to services, we're also continuing to invest, and we've got some very positive investment through the Better Care Fund programme that we're working on, particularly with the CCG, around reablement, around recovery, and around trying to make sure that our first point of contact is one that's about getting people onto the right pathway to be able to recover, to be maintained at home for as long as possible, or if they've had to leave their home and go to hospital, to get them back there as fast as possible. And that's probably the single most important thing that we need to do to reduce demand and to reduce acuity in the social care system as well as the healthcare system. And to support that, we're seeking to drive at much greater scale and pace the Council's existing strategies around promoting the use of extra care housing, supported living and stronger ways of working with people in the community. I think my third priority, and it links back to the issue I raised earlier about the market really, is around trying to make sure that between us we've got the resources and the services available for those people who are the most frail and the most vulnerable. We have growing numbers of people over 85 living with complex multiple conditions, and the associated numbers of people with dementia in particular, we can estimate not only will cost our system collectively something like 30 million by 2030 if we continue delivering services as we do now, but also will have untold pressure on all of the systems in the county if we don't get these things right. So we certainly know that we need to do as much as we can to carve out as much of our resource, energy, commitment and time to be able to really develop the highest possible quality services for the most frail and vulnerable members of the community. And our fourth priority is to continue with what one might describe as almost the business as usual agenda. We're in the process of implementing the Care Act. There are massive changes associated there for carers, for the way that we manage our services, for the ways in which we help people be more self-sufficient, the ways in which we give people more control in their lives. And notwithstanding recent government decisions to delay some of the financial changes, the ethos of the Care Act isn't just about the financial changes, it is about giving people control over their lives, and it is about changing the face of social care. And linked to that, we continue to work closely to ensure that we can safeguard people properly across the county, and I think you'd all expect that that has to remain really our number one priority. Now, just to go on a little bit to public health, and I've touched on some of the issues there, but I wanted really just to talk a little bit about the benefits that I think we're already seeing of having a very active public health team and public health director based in the county council, in terms of the work we're doing now to really embed public health skills and resources in all of our directorates in the council, and across in particular in the ways in which we work at local area level with area committees, with district councils and with local communities, And our particular priority there, which we think will particularly support the success regime, is the work that we're doing around really putting some resource into thinking about what does this fully engaged community issue mean? How do we help people at a local level be much more resilient in terms of their own health, but also be much more equipped and skilled to help other people and to help the wider community? And there's significant work going on there at that local level to really try and make sure that we can kind of manage some of the upstream interventions and some of the wider determinants of health there. So just to conclude really with a few words about some of the partnership priorities within that, and I've obviously touched on some of them. I think we've already got very clear policies and priorities about looking in a very pragmatic way at where we can integrate our commissioning, where it makes sense, and making sure that form follows function there. So we're not embedded in a model that says we've got to integrate everything for the sake of it, but where does it make sense that we align our staff, that we pool our resources, and that we deal with the market and with our communities as a single body rather than as separate bodies. I think I hinted, particularly with the work around reablement and things around learning disabilities and mental health and so on, there's some clear priorities about continuing to align and integrate our frontline staff so that whatever the future holds in terms of different models of service acquisitions and changed functions and so on, whether it's in the north of the county or the south, we can be clear that we've got frontline staff who know how to work together, who don't create barriers between organisations and between professionals, and who can help people, as Sue's reminded us, have the best possible patient pathway, patient experience, customer experience as we work through. And I think just one last thing I would want to say, particularly because Sir Neil reminded us about the regulators and wanting to work differently, I would make a particular plea to the Care Quality Commission that they engage their social care arms in this work as well. Because I've said earlier, I think some of the solutions in the market will only happen and will only work if we can actually start to think about some novel solutions about how we grow, develop, shape and partner with the independent sector, particularly in the delivery of nursing care in the community. I'll finish there. Thank you very much.